What I don't.
She is the sweetest.
You guys
you can see my exercise bike, aka
a little
foot rack.
pentalon.
Foot rack.
I gotta. You know what the hardest thing is for me too is like once we go live, that then I gotta make sure. There we go. I'm gonna mute that. Perfect. All right. We're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to Your Creative Journey Live. I'm Kevin Gregg and
I'm Paul Carganilla. Are you recording the podcast, or is this just for the video?
Every single time, dude. Yes, we're doing everything. We're doing everything right now. Just make sure you get it going.
Okay.
I got Paul's here. You see another lovely lady. Dana, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. This is Dana Middleton. She's joining us tonight. Hold on. I have to make an announcement to my wife because otherwise, because my wife's on the YouTube stream tonight making some comments. Kate, please text Maddie and let him know that we're in the middle of a live stream, because if he finds out that we're doing a live stream and he's not been informed about this, he'll be very upset. So
I was just speaking on FaceTime with Mr. Danny Roque.
Oh gosh, good. Yes.
He made it home today, and I was telling him, like, isn't it crazy that it was just a week ago that you crashed our podcast and decided there's going to be a spin-off show.
God bless him, right?
Yeah.
For our listeners who are out there, just please keep Danny Roque in your thoughts and prayers. He is awesome. He had a bit of a medical emergency that happened last week. Fortunately, he is home and he's well, and we're thinking about him and praying for him. And knowing him, somehow he will probably, if I were a betting man, he would ignore doctor's orders and he'd figure out some way to get onto this stream.
Well, you know what? He and Nora both said, because he had a traumatic brain injury, that the doctor said, since he's a creative person, like being creative, like will help him help that muscle heal. And so he called me 15 minutes ago and he's like, hey, I'm going to be on the show on Saturday doing improv. And I'm like, no. And he's like, it's for my brain to heal. And I'm like, how do I say no to that?
I love him so much, man. So dear. You know, and I'll have to tell you, Paul, like before we even get to doing the audio part of it, again, I think it's a huge reminder for all of us. You know, you just don't know what's going to happen. And there's something I love about Danny is that he just completely embraces every single moment that he has. And I think for all of us, it's just a huge wake up and a huge reminder to go, hey man, if you have not told the person that you love them, let them know that, and just let people know that. So love you, Danny. Love you. Deal with it. Hey man. We got some audio podcasting to get to, because I can't wait to talk to Dana. She's got a lot of stuff to do. We were actually talking for our YouTube guests, for our YouTube visitors. Dana and I were discussing what our trivia questions are going to be at the end. Dana's stacking up she's got some heavy hitter questions, man.
Hey, before we start, I have to move a fan because all of a sudden it's getting hot in LA.
Well, that's how it rolls. Don't worry. We're not in the audio part of it.
Warm in LA, everybody.
That's it. We finally did it, Paul. We finally scared one guest off the show.
I'm out of here.
Are we giving stuff away again?
We are. Fortunately,
find stuff.
Yeah, no, Dana was amazing. She was able to give me a couple more books. Her and Pete, well, we'll get into it
Do they know each other?
Yes, they're married. As a matter of fact, Pete's somewhere in that room right now. Not in that room, but he's in that house.
It's really hard to follow Pete. This was the wrong way.
You're gonna be great.
That's me anytime I go to karaoke with my wife.
Yeah.
Like, very unfortunate.
She always goes right before me, and I'm like,
hey, listen, before we get started, can we say hi to all our people here that are on YouTube tonight? Look at this. We got Melissa, Kelsey, Diana, Dari's here, Angelica's here. Prayers going out for Danny. It's so awesome, man. I love this. I love this. I love this. Anna, welcome. Glad to have you here. Charity's here. My gosh.
Rick Lee.
Hey, Rick Lee. Rick Lee's back again. Rick Lee's a good friend of ours as well.
Meryl. Did you say Meryl? Joy?
Meryl's here. Awesome.
Hannah.
Hey, Hannah. Joyous Kings in the house. All right, guys, what do you say? Should we get to an audio podcast? I say let's do it. All right. Who's introing? Paul, why don't you intro? And
I did it last week, but I'll do it again.
No, I'll do it, and then you can follow. What do you think?
You can do it. You can do it, and I'm gonna like it.
All right, here we go, gang. Ready in 5, 4, 3. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Your Creative Journey. My name is Kevin Gregg.
I'm still Paul Carganilla, and we're so glad you joined us for another week of Your Creative Journey podcast.
Yes, this is a show that is designed to help you get your creative work done. Whether you're an actor, singer, dancer, painter, musician, whatever that is, we're here to inspire you so that you get the work done. I'll tell you, Paul, it's so funny. I was just thinking about this today. I thought, if I do this introduction, will he say I'm still Paul Carganilla? And I think it's the funniest thing. I'm waiting for like the week when you finally say, I'm not Paul Carganilla. I'm like Odinius Steppenwolf.
Well, you know what happens in my brain is like, yes. You carry this show so hard that I'm waiting any week. I'm waiting for that you're fired email.
Get out of here.
But I'm still here, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm so thankful and blessed that you're still I'm like Baby Yoda, like just tagging along with the Mando. Love it.
I do like that, though. Can I tell you something? I'm going to tell you something with the Mandalorian thing.
We should do that for Halloween. You can be the Mandalorian, and I'll be the child.
Ridiculous. I am actually, get a load of this. I know one of the guys that plays one of the stunt people for the Mandalorian. It's well, his real name, I guess I could say his real name, but he's known as Thomas Wayne, but he's John Wayne's grandson. He used to live in our apartment complex forever. He actually stands in for the Mandalorian with a lot of the gunslinging and all this stuff. So if you look on Disney Plus and take a look, they did a series of, behind the scenes of the Mandalorian. There Thomas Wayne is on there. So, or excuse me, it's Brendan Wayne. He goes by the stage name of Brendan Wayne. So,
here's a question. Why does the Mandalorian need a stand-in?
It's interesting stuff. Paul, I could go down so many rabbit holes. All I can tell our listeners out there is if you go on YouTube and look up behind the scenes stories of Mandalorian, you're in for hours of interesting watches. That's all I can say. So
I only have one word for you.
Yes. Well, that's our guest, Dana Middleton. She's right out the gate. She's always referred to us as nerds. Don't worry. We're coming around to you, sister. That's for sure. Hey, we start out every week with this. Dana's not going to get out of this at all. But we always ask, what was the best thing that happened this week for you? Paul, what was the best thing that happened this week for you, buddy?
This week probably wasn't like an event. I'm just very thankful, very grateful for health and that my friends are healthy. Health scares that we already talked about come out of nowhere, and they can change your life in an instant. And we just got some really depressing news out of Anaheim today.
Oh gosh.
And I just I'm glad my friends are healthy, and I just
Hey, Paul, let's address that for 1 second if we can, because we do have a number of we do have a number of listeners here that work at Disney. For those of you that don't know, just a few hours ago, and we've been dealing with the pandemic that's been happening here in the United States, the Walt Disney Company just announced that they're going to be cutting 28,000 jobs of cast members between Disneyland and Disney World, and so there's a lot of people that don't know what's going to be happening. But I think, and the reason I wanted to pause it for a second is just please, we have you in our thoughts and prayers, but please realize this, that you are not bound by who or what you work for. That does not negate who you are as a creative person. And I'm speaking of more than just the entertainers that work down at Disneyland. I also want to talk to all those people that have those different jobs and positions. And, it doesn't make it easy, but I want to say thank you for all of your hard work, and to know that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. you know? I don't know. It's a little puppies and unicorns with it, but I just wanted to say that to the people that are out there listening.
No, and it's just like it's another slap in the face after the whole like who's an essential worker? Artists and entertainers, you're not essential. And it's just like, what have I been working for my whole entire life? And then like, you know, after all that wave subsides, then you get this, and it's just like I'm still technically a cast member. I still am a sub in a show that's down there as far as I know. But like I work there twice a year, but I just like all of my friends out there, my heart hurts for them. And keep your chin up, keep it like something's around the corner.
Absolutely. So hang in there.
So I'm counting my blessings. That's my biggest thing this week. And also, if I had to pick an event, I think it's that my daughter, Everly, who's been slaying it in the industry, way harder than I ever did in my life, and she's 6, got pinned for another film project this week. And it's just like rolling in for her. And I'm just living vicariously through her and watching, like, so excited for her. So that was my big thing.
Happy.
Thank you.
So happy, man. Congratulations.
Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, what about you?
Well, I am going to tell you this. I would say again, the best thing that happened for me this week, which is it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. I just discovered, I know it was on YouTube a while back, but Netflix has released Cobra Kai, which is sort of like a follow-up to The Karate Kid. And I never do this with binge watching stuff. I have absolutely adored that show. They have 2 seasons of it that's on, and boy, it's a throwback. It's the writing on it is so great because it's a reversal of characters, but it's more nuanced than that. And I'm just have been so pleased with it. Listen, there's some language and content stuff that happens in it that I'm not going to be a huge advocate of, right? I'm just not. But I will tell you, it's just made me feel goofy. Kate and I have just been blazing through it. And Kate's actually been saying, I want to watch all of this, and you don't want to sit down and watch all of them. So it's been an interesting thing. So anyway. Maybe
we'll have to check it out. So did you watch the whole series on Sunday? Because you never texted me back.
I'm almost down to it. We're just about down to it. So it's good stuff. But as always, you know what also is fantastic about my week? Introducing Yes.
Having friends. I was going to say having friends.
Having friends is one of them. And we're about to bring one of my friends onto the show, who after this, Paul, is going to be one of your friends for sure. I'm going to read her bio because she is amazing. Welcome to the show, Dana Middleton, who writes books for kids. Her debut, The Infinity Year of Avalon James, was nominated for the Young Hoosier Book Award and selected for Oregon's Battle of the Books. She is also the author of Open If You Dare and the Young American's Unofficial Guide to the Very British World of Harry Potter. Her next middle grade novel, Truth or Consequences, is going to be published by Chronicle Books in 2021. And she also coaches creative people at thealignedartist.com. I'm so happy to have her on the show. Dana Middleton, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Paul. It's so good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, and it's great to meet you.
It's great to meet you, Paul. I've been enjoying the podcast and the show very much.
Oh. Dana actually gave us a very positive review of the podcast going back several weeks. So thank you for that.
She was the one.
No. We have others since then, okay? But she's one of them. And for those of you that didn't know it, here's something. Dana is actually married to Pete Atkins, who was on the show last week. So there you have it. In that very house that Dana is in, Pete Atkins is lurking around somewhere. So
he's getting ready for episode 2 of 24 of his creative journey.
Oh my God. It's hard to follow that. It's hard to follow all of that, but I will do my best.
Crazy. Hey, Dana, I want to give our listeners an idea of who you are, where you came from. You know, it's interesting. We met via acting class. And first, you know, we met because my wife, Kate, was in acting class with you back in Los Angeles, but you're not from Los Angeles originally. Where do you hail from, my friend?
I hail from the South, as you will hear in my voice as we talk on and on tonight. I'm from Georgia, but we've lived here for, like a long time, and met Kate in acting class. I'm not an actor. I actually coach actors now, a lot of actors, but it was a moment where I acted.
And I'm going to challenge you on this. You're not an actor. I did several plays with you, and this woman right here is an outstanding actress, as a matter of fact. And Dana, you're actually one of the people that got me my first commercial agent, because you had a commercial agent with Elite, right? You had it with the Elite model or whatever that was, and you were the person that ended up giving me a reference for it. So say that you're not an actor, you were out.
So you know what, Kevin, we had a big French kiss on a play. Do you remember the play we were in? I mean, we were like lip locked up against the refrigerator.
Yes, we were. And my
wife directed it.
Yes, she was. And there's a terrible story with that too, which is like, sorry guys, we're going to get into the weeds with this in a second. We had this, what was called My Thing of Love. It was a great play.
Great play.
And oh my gosh, Dana, I'm so sorry that I did this to you, but our closing night, I was sick and had a fever.
He was so sick.
And I let you know, and you had to go on a trip with Pete. You were going like on a train or something like that. Do you remember this?
Family. Do I remember this? I've never been so sick in my life. My whole family, they come out and we take my parents, my sister, her family, like we take a train trip up the coast. I will never forget it. I'm sitting there at, where you're at the dining car, and all of a sudden, and we're fine. And all of a sudden it was like 1 second, I'm fine. And the next second I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And the whole trip, I was so sick. I was so sick. I'll never forget it. It was worth it, Kevin, to be up against that refrigerator with you.
Well, listen, man, the show had to go
on. I'm sorry if I'm digesting a little too far off course, but
yes.
Were Dana and Pete the ones that got you the refrigerator too? When you
yes. Oh my gosh.
So you've told that story. So like there's 2 Dana refrigerator stories on this podcast now.
It's all about the refrigerator.
We told them about it. So Dana and Pete were just rock stars. They helped us out. Well, we've all been such good friends for such a long time.
We've been such good friends. And when I met Kate, she was pregnant with Duncan. And so that's been 20 years of these people in our lives.
Is that nuts? But Dana, you didn't start out, but to your point, you didn't start out as an actress when you got involved in the business, right? I mean,
not at all. I worked in production. I was really working to be a producer. I think at the time I would call, and I did produce some things that were interesting. And, but I think I was always that shadow artist, the person who was writing on the side, not particularly finishing things, not particularly believing in myself.
Can you speak to that for a second though? Because I think that you said a very important phrase I would love for some of our listeners to hear. You just referred to the shadow artist. And what do you mean by that when you say shadow artist?
Well, I think it's defined in Webster's dictionary as, no, I don't know how it's defined, but I think it's the idea that, you surround yourself with artists, which I certainly did. I married an artist. My friends were artists. I was supporting artists. Like I say, I thought I was going to be a producer because because I didn't believe in myself enough as a writer. That's really where I really wanted to be, I think, the whole time. But I, had that, I teach 5th graders now, this idea like why you don't write or why you don't believe in yourself. And one of them is you think that real writers know how to do it. Right. They're just going to know how to do it. They're just going to have that story and they're going to know what to do. And it's just going to flow out of them. And that was not what happened for me. It was challenging. And when you don't believe in yourself, it's more challenging because you don't give the process the space to unfold. And I don't think I really understood what the creative process was. And especially as a writer, I think as an actor, I think having time as an actor and doing the plays we did in the theater company and all of that was helped me to probably understand the creative process more. And probably I never said this before or even thought this before, but I'm wondering if that helped me be a better writer because it helped me to understand process better.
I'm going to tell you, I mentioned it here, Thomas Lennon and another guy, I think his name is Ben Grant, but they write a ton of stuff. And one of the things that I had gone to a session that they had done at Comic-Con years ago, and they had a book that was out about screenwriting, but they tell writers, get in an improv class. Even if you don't want to act or do all that stuff, get in an improv class and get up and do that stuff and practice just getting it wrong. Right. Because especially in the writing process, which we'll get into in just a little bit here, but it's not an easy process. And it is something, I think it speaks to the whole purpose of why we're doing this show, is that we want to pull back the veneer of what the creative process is so that people don't think it's exactly that, of just like, you know what, they're perfectly, they've got this God-given talent and they just always hit it out of the park every single time. It's like, that is so far from the truth. That's so far from the truth. Are there occasional people that can do that stuff, or just like artistic savants or whatever? Okay. Yeah. But it's so rare. And I think that talking about it and being transparent about the process, and it's not easy and it can be messy,
Well, it is something I say, truly, I will say this over and over tonight, probably, because I go talk to kids in classes, or I did before all of this business. And one of the things I say is, I'll say, there's a kid in this class who can draw really well, because there's always a kid in the class who can draw really well. And they'll all point to that. I said, I don't want, I'm not here to embarrass you. I think that's really great, that you just draw, and it probably comes naturally and easily. And it's just that thing, and that happens sometimes. But I was not that kid. I was the kid sitting next to that kid, feeling like I wasn't enough because it didn't flow so naturally. It wasn't so easy for me. And the great revelation of my life, which I wish I could go back and tell myself, was that doesn't matter. Like, everybody has something to express, and what you have to express is important, and how you get there may be very different than how someone else gets there. And just because it may flow more easily at one point for someone than it does for you does not mean that your expression isn't valid.
You are bringing up a point. My wife can't figure out how to do the roll the eyes emoji yet on
sure
YouTube.
As heck can do it in real life.
She can do it in real life. I don't think she's figured this out. I'll say this. Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson talks about this in one of his books, where he talks about this comparison thing. Stop comparing yourself to someone else. Instead, compare yourself to who you were or where you were before, right? That's what the comparison should be, right? And again, if we're on this trajectory, and tell you what, that can work both ways, and they can both still be positive, right? It's one of the things I've talked about in some of my creative breakthrough classes I've had with people, which is the idea of like, hey, let's get real with where you're at and what you're doing. And how many times have I been stuck in something? And when I take the time to take a look at where I have been and what I've done and compare it to the present, I can sometimes look back and go, wow, I've done a lot. That's amazing. And if I've done that much, then I can do that or more. Or sometimes I have moments where you got to call yourself on your crap, where you get caught and you just kind of go, I'm not working to my highest abilities right now. And I know that, and I can call myself on it. I guess the worst example, not the worst example, but I've had this with running over the last, couple of years. I can run. I'm a long distance runner. It's not fun. But I know that I can run, over 2.5 miles. I can go out and do a 2.5 mile run. And yet there's been a part of me for a long time saying, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then something inside of me said, you got to get going, get out there, do that. Because the other thing, it reminds me of this clip that I saw from a Homer Simpson, from the Simpsons thing, right? Homer Simpson goes in and he's getting a whole bunch of like donuts and beer and chips and all this stuff. And he's eating the stuff and they go, aren't you worried about that? And Homer says, oh, that's something for future Homer to worry about. Whew, I'm fine. that guy's going to have a hard time, but I'm great. So.
He's living in the moment.
Well, right. It's sort of like it's like the negative version of it,
Right.
So Dana, this is very insightful. So I'm really fascinated with, we're just going to deep dive on this. Okay. We're going to deep dive on, let's just deep dive, because that's what you do fantastic. What was that turning point for you? What was the turning point for you that made you start kind of like waking up and kind of going, and and you knew somehow that you'd been doing writing forever and ever? Because I'm thinking that right now, for part of your journey is you've made this switch, like you've had success with, producing and doing some acting and all this stuff, but something clicked here with the writing and also with the other coaching that you've been doing with creatives. What was this for you?
Well, I think it was, it was important to me. And, and one of the big shifts was when I asked your wife, who is not a writer, to write a screenplay with me, because I wasn't brave enough to do it on my own at that point.
What made you ask her to do that?
I have no idea. Self, masochism. I don't know. Whatever it is.
That's sort of insinuating like my wife was like this bully in the class who was like,
or just had no talent or creativity.
We laugh because, Kevin and I are so much alike, and and Kate and Pete are so much alike. Kate is, I adore her, but I have to also give her a hard time. But because, she's my person. And she really is. And so, so we wrote this kid's script. I had this idea about this Christmas script that I thought, I want to write this kids thing. I didn't know why I wanted to write a kids thing. And I'd written some other things too, but I thought this, I just wanted to do it. And I asked her and she said, yes. And we did it. And it was actually great. I think it turned out to be a great experience, a great script. We got a little play on it, but it didn't.
You guys got it optioned at one point. Like there was some literally big movement on it for a little bit. It was crazy.
But it did ultimately, it did not get produced. But that happens to a lot of things, and that's the way it is. But it really it showed me something, and that was, oh wait, kids, that's what I want to do. And then I wrote a novel, my first novel, Lindo's Light, which has not been published, but is it was like, oh. That was the light bulb for me, writing that script with Kate and then going, this is the thing. I had no idea I wanted to write for kids. I did not know. And kids, when I say kids, these aren't picture books. Kids, because a lot of people say, well, what do you write? Picture book? You write, they're like novels called middle grade novels. So, for kids 8 to 12. So, they're 200,
which is still
pages, whatever. It doesn't.
I have to tell you, some of the most memorable books that I've ever read in my life were those, and yet still the same type of books I could easily pick up and dive right into as well.
Oh yeah, we all have our favorites from when we were a kid, and I feel like it's now, and it took me a really long time to get there, but that this is where I'm supposed to be. It's just like, oh yeah, this is right. So that's where it started. Now it took a long time, and then I wrote the Infinity Year of Avalon James, and I sent things out for a long time, for years off and on. Didn't get an agent, went through all the thing that everybody goes through until I did, and then things changed.
So what was that thing that kept you going in the middle of that? Obviously you had I'm sure that you were getting the feedback, but what was the thing that kept you showing back up and doing it? What was the thing that drove you as you were doing the writing? Because I think that sometimes people get caught up, and again, this goes back to a thing that we talked about with Pete last week. But this idea of what were your reasons for writing? Because I think that sometimes people get things in their mind of going, I remember asking this of people in acting classes. Why do you want to be an actor? Well, I want to be famous. Oh, hold on a second. Let's back that up for a second, right? Or somebody saying, well, why do you want to be an actor? Well, because I want to make a lot of money. It's like, hold on, let's get very clear about what it is that you're trying to do. Is your objective making a lot of money? Because probably doing acting to get to that goal isn't the way to do it. There's probably other ways to do it, right? Which you go, great, be a real estate banking investor. Is that your goal? Is your goal to make a lot of money? Then bam, let's get you on that path to do that. But it has to be something else. So I guess the question, the long-winded question is, what was the thing that kept you going and driving when you weren't seeing the quote unquote results, right? Or, not seeing the agent or the publisher or whatever in the beginning?
Because I really wanted to be famous and make a lot of money.
And there you have it. She just knocked down the foundation.
But for real though?
For real. Well, okay. No, listen, I'm all for all of those things. Like, I really am. I'm like, go for it. But I like you're saying, I mean, I was joking, but yeah, that happens sometimes, but I don't think that you really have to want to do the thing. I mean, for me, it was so interesting when I remember the summer very clearly that I finished The Infinity Year of Avalon James, which was the first book that got published. And I remember thinking in that moment that I will look back in this being the best summer of my life. It took about 4 or 5 months to write, but it was.
You mean the writing process was the best summer of your life?
Yeah, because I thought, because all the pieces came together in such a way for me that it was pretty magical. It was pretty amazing. And not, it wasn't saying that I didn't have to sit, get to it every day. Of course, that's the whole thing. That's the process. You have to get to it. You have to sit down and write. But there was so much I learned, and it was just, it really was. It was such a beautiful experience. In fact, I would say it's the most beautiful experience as a writer I've ever had. Wow. To date. I'm having a pretty good experience right now, but that's another story. But yeah, so is that idea like, oh my God, I finished a book that I think is pretty kind of wonderful. And it was wonderful for me. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen to it. I had no idea. You have that hope, you finish and you think, oh, wouldn't this be great?
Right.
And then if something happened with it.
Here's an interesting follow-up, because I don't think that you had the same experience with your following book.
Oh God, Kevin, I almost said a bad word. No, I did not. And I didn't. And you helped me and I almost died.
All right. That's it. Thanks for joining us on the show, everybody. We'll see you next week.
And you can like and review our podcast.
You're making my nose run because I'm thinking about it.
Dana, so talk about what that thing, your follow-up book, which was Open If You Dare, which is fantastic.
So The Infinity Year of Avalon James, I write it on, and I'm working at the same time, and it's like you got your life. It's not like I'm sitting at like have all this, I mean, you do it. It's like you do it, you make it happen. And then I got the agent. It was a while before that happened. I think it was like a year and a half later that I got the agent after I finished it. And she sold the book to Macmillan, and it was a 2-book deal, which was like, great, that's fantastic. Except I had to write a second book, and I had to write a second book on a timetable. It had a deadline, it was due. And that was very scary and very different from just writing the book, like, in my whatever, in my pajamas or, whatever. Oh, I was still writing probably in my pajamas, but you know what I mean? It was very different than just kind of having that freedom and space.
Was it so that was a thing? It was the pressure of the deadline? Was it like you were, was it afraid that you were going to like let somebody down or disappoint them, or was it?
Well, yeah, it was. Yes, absolutely. A big yes. And I had one idea that I ended up scrapping because I didn't think that was exactly right. And then I had the other idea, and I had all this stuff and I couldn't do it. And then I went to my friend, Gregg, who said, Dana, what am I going to do? I can't do this. It's too much. He says, set a timer, write for 6 minutes, and then 6 minutes, and then 6 minutes.
Yes.
And I swear that saved my life because I didn't know what the book was going to be yet. And in that, I don't know if I'd done it so much beforehand, but that really helped me just do free writing, meaning I just would write stuff for at least 18 minutes per Kevin Gregg, and a day, as I was kind of gearing up. And I realized that every time I did that, which it would usually end up being longer, But even if it wasn't longer, I would learn something. I would learn something about a character. I would say, oh, you know, that scene, I'm going to have a Viking funeral with a violin at some point. And I remember writing that scene, or just writing that scene, you know, just writing it. And very early on in that process. And it appeared in one form in the book later on.
Yeah.
But that really helped me. I mean, because for me, it's always starting. Starting's the hard part. Yeah. On the book I'm working on with Kate right now. Kate and I are writing a book series. Yep. Back to Kate, because all roads lead back to my.
I'll have to read some of those comments in a second, but
all roads lead back to Kate. But the idea, and she like I just hem and haw at the beginning. It's so hard for me, and then once I get to a certain point, I kind of, that, you know, it somehow it just kind of clicks in and the momentum starts. And then I get confident as a writer, but I'm never confident at the beginning. I always feel like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to fail and it's impossible and just all that stuff. I'm just complete cliche.
I love this. I'm going to go through and read some of the comments that are here. Thanks for everybody that's commenting in the YouTube feed right now. You know, we've got some other people going back to our talking about getting into acting and drama classes. We've got Charity saying, I loved my acting classes. Such a challenge, but so much comes out of it. Things that you don't ever realize. Kelsey said that she'd done some improv and wrote a play in her theater class. Down the line a little bit, Kate's on here, of course, tonight. Kate's saying, wait, you can make money doing this? Yes, you can. I want a big shout out to
Wait, don't tell her.
Right. Big shout out to my friend Scott Brown. Scott, I'm glad you're here tonight, buddy. Glad to have you here. Rick Lee says this. Rick Lee says, The Infinity Year of Avalon James is a terrific book, and I concur with that. I've read it many times, and my students read it every year. Dana has been gracious enough to visit classes multiple times. Always powerful. Yes. And then Kate says, I hate Kevin, but he was so right about the timer thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, Kevin, because I don't think you've ever mentioned a timer on this show.
You know, I think I have, but I think I've mentioned it a lot.
I'm joking. It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's honestly, it's for those people that are listening, and I literally borrowed it from a Pomodoro timer method that usually breaks things down into like 6-minute increments. But there's something psychologically that happens when you set that 6-minute timer that it's a very short period of time that you can start doing it. And before you know it, that bell goes off or that alarm goes off and you go, oh, well, I did that, so I can do it again, you know? And usually when we're starting out, to Dana's point, I usually have students start out at a very small range. If you're showing up 6 minutes a day, great. Then it's 12 minutes, then it's 18 minutes. But I think that the consistent thing, which I feel happened in your process, Dana, was that it starts building in the consistency of you showing up every day.
Oh, yeah, that's the key. I mean, that is the key. You know, as a writer, it only happens if you show up, and hopefully every day or 5 or 6 days a week. And when that's happening, it doesn't even matter if you're writing only 18 minutes a day. You will finish a screenplay. You will finish a novel. It will happen. You know, and that's the one thing that speaking of Rick Lee saying coming to his class, one of the things I say, and Rick's been so great. I love going to his class every year, and they have a library of Avalon James books there. He's been such a great supporter and advocate.
Thank you for all of your teaching, Rick. You were awesome.
Rick is such a great teacher, and he was one of our acting buddies. You know, I mean, so just it's wonderful. But that idea of be the tortoise and the hare is what I figured out.
Oh, that's interesting. Please expand on that. Be the tortoise and the hare.
Again, as I say to the 5th graders, but being this, meaning you're the hare when you get the idea, right? You're all like, oh, this is a great idea. I got to do it. You know, and that was always me. I was the hare. I had very little tortoise in me. And that was a problem. But you need the hare to have this, you know, I'm so excited. All that enthusiasm, all that kind of out of the gate energy. You absolutely have to have it.
Yes.
But it will not sustain you. It will not get you to the end of the novel or the end of the screenplay. No. Right? You have to, you've got to let your tortoise kick in, yes. which I also equate is like being a writer is like plowing a field. like being a farmer. It's just, you go out there and plow your field every day. It's about that exciting sometimes. And that's it. That's it. You're just by yourself. You're doing your thing, and that's it. And you don't dig up your seeds. You don't pay that much attention to if it's growing yet. You just do it.
I think it's a consistent thing that I would love the listeners to hear, is that it is a process. It is a process, and that there is work involved in it. I love the story that I've told in classes before. I'm going to give credit to Dave Ramsey, because this is where I heard it. Again, cue eye roll for Kate. Give her some eye roll emojis, everybody, because they're out there doing it right now. But it's the story of a preacher that shows up. He shows up in a small town, and he's going to go out to meet the new people that are in the community. He's a brand new preacher that has just taken over. And as he's walking out to the farm, he comes up to a farmhouse, and he's walking down the lane. He sees what beautiful rows of wheat that there are. And as he's coming up to the house, he sees that there's this beautiful road and this beautiful white picket fence and some chickens and beautiful vegetable garden in the front. And there's an apple pie that's on the sill, and it's a beautifully painted home. And it's just so picturesque. And as he's walking up to the front gate, right out from the side where the wheat is, out comes the farmer, because he's just coming out from a day of work, and he's just covered in sweat and grime and all this stuff. And the preacher says, "Hey, I'm your new preacher. I just want to introduce myself." And he looks around at everything. And he says to the farmer, he says, "Well, my goodness, it looks like the Lord has truly blessed you." To which the farmer says, "Yeah, you should have seen what it looked like when he gave it to me first." and the idea is that it's not that when you first get it. It's not the picturesque Norman Rockwell finished creative thing. This is a trap that we run into as creatives. We read the novel, we read the completed novel, we see the finished movie, we see the finished series, we see the finished painting, or we hear the finished song or album, and we go, "Wow, that's it. They just got it right off the." And it's like, it's so far from the truth. It's why I'm such an avid fan of, I love reading books about the making of movies, or listening to commentaries, or getting those insights of when people were creating stuff. It is a process, but to Dana's point, yes, you get the excitement about the stuff, but you must train yourself to show up every single day and be consistent. And that there is joy that comes in that. There is joy that comes in that.
Yeah, but you also fail and don't always do it right. And that, that's the thing too. I mean, you're not going to do this perfectly. I mean, there are some people who do, but it's a journey. It's a creative journey.
Dana, can I jump back and ask, like, what did you focus on?
Well, let's see. What did I focus on? I was very like,
so was it writing, I guess?
No, I was very, well, you know what? I was like, in high school, I was very kind of student government girl and that kind of thing, and all that stuff. But I did get a journalism degree in college at the University of Georgia.
It's a different kind of writing, though.
It was, creative. And it was also, I ended up going into the TV film track. So that's what I did there. Yeah. So, so I did some writing.
But this whole like youth fiction was just like a whole new landscape for you. It was not anything you went to class for.
No.
So like probably as you're starting out, like, because this was kind of my experience too, like you start out in this just brand new world and you go, "Oh, this is fun and exciting and I want to get good at it." But like there's a huge learning curve, and there's like a lot of lessons that you learn along the way. And while it is like you're learning, the best way to learn is by doing it. It's also like just this fascinating part of the process to me, and where like now you're a professional, like this is what you do for a living, and like nobody trained you for it, really. You just like, this is what you've picked up by doing what you love.
Yeah, well, yes, I will say that. And I also live with someone who would, when I'd say, well, maybe I should go get like an MFA in writing, and he would just say, just go write. Pete just write. You don't need that. Go write. And so, when you live with someone who's really talented, it's daunting, because you're like, well, wait, how can I do, you know what I mean? How can I do that? Are you kidding me? But we write very different things, which is fine. And he's always so supportive. But yeah, so I think it's just I think I get a lot. I think I have a lot of my thoughts about being a writer from him. And I think that's a good thing, because I think he has some pretty good thoughts about being a writer, frankly. He does. I mean,
Yeah. No, he's incredibly insightful. I see you nodding your head a lot too, Paul, because I know that that's the experience. I mean, heck, I think that that's an experience that all three of us have here on this interview right now, is that we all have supportive people that are in our life. We have supportive spouses, supportive creative spouses, and that's a big thing. That's not to say in order to be a creative, that you have to, that is mandatory that you marry a creative spouse.
No, it's really important to marry somebody who has a regular job and makes good money, is what it really is about. But
it doesn't hurt, it's kind of good. Dana, I want to talk to you about this, because I know that you've been definitely helping a lot of creatives. I know that you've been working with actors and other artists as well. Because you've realized that there have been people that run into these blocks, right? Because obviously you've experienced them before. I've experienced them before. Can you talk about that? Talk about some of the work that you do with helping other people get past their junk.
Yeah, it's really is it's my bifurcated life, but it really isn't, because it all goes together. Is that at a certain point, I felt so stuck and so blocked for so long, as far as like doing the work was one thing. But then once I was doing the work, I felt like I was stuck getting it out in the world. And that was frustrating, and I thought, what's going on? And so it kind of took me down my own rabbit hole of like, what's going on inside, and one of the things that I learned was this thing called tapping. It's emotional freedom technique. And it's this thing where you tap on like acupressure points on your body to release certain, like essentially blocks, but it can be all kinds of things. It helps to take us out of fight or flight mode. It helps to calm us down. And it also can help us rewire our neurology. So that was really interesting. And once I started tapping, things started changing for me, actually. And things started flowing better in my life. And it was pretty amazing. And so kind of by accident, I would tap with friends or family or whomever. And then I started tapping with people, and then it became clients. And now I have this thing called the Aligned Artist, which is where I coach with groups and some individuals still, but I'm doing more group work and helping people to kind of like really look at what it is that might be holding you back. The energy that you might not even be aware of, because that is the most frustrating thing.
It's a very interesting technique. I've sat down and have had a couple of sessions with Dana as well too, and it's a very interesting mixture of physicality. There's a bit of, you wouldn't say this, Dana, but there's definitely some psychology that's involved in it as well. And it's a strange mind body connection that happens, because it's an interesting thing as you go through and you hit these certain pressure points that are in you. And if you're sitting down with somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, right, and they kind of and Dana, to your point, right, which is like you're a very compassionate and empathetic person, right? I think that's something that probably you and I share very much, right? Sometimes it can be to our detriment, where we take on other people's junk. But it's you have quite a talent of being so compassionate, empathetic, and when you're just like you would with a therapist when you're sitting down and talking. And I'm not putting this in the same range, but when you have somebody, for example, like Dana, that's able to sort of guide you and ask the correct questions as you're going through the process, it's bizarre is not the right word. It's kind of an eye-opening moment, right? Because I've had a couple of moments, and I'll just, be transparent. I have had moments where, in the middle of a couple of things, and Dana's been talking to me and just going through this process of hitting certain pressure points, I've just broken down weeping, because it's like all of a sudden, like this stuff, you get to the deeper stuff of what it is. Do I think that there's other things that are involved in this process? Absolutely. I think that there's, prayer and self-reflection and all those other things. But again, that this is just one of these other incredible tools that you've found and discovered, for lack of a better word, you've tapped into.
Yeah.
But gosh, it's been an interesting process for you,
It has. And what was so interesting is that as I worked with more artists, I found out that there were certain commonalities, certain things that artists, certain blocks, I'd say, or limitations that many artists held. And that was fascinating to me because I didn't know that until I, worked with many artists.
Listen, hold on. Let's get into this. Okay. We're going to get into this. I'm not asking you to do, disclosure of anything.
Oh.
What is that? What's some of the commonalities that you find with people? Because I think that this speaks, I have a funny feeling that you're going to say some things and there's going to be some people that go, I feel that, I experienced that, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Well, okay. I'll give you, one of them, I always I run into this a lot, is people choosing to be an artist and on some deeper level, they don't approve of that life choice. Meaning they're going to do it and they think they approve of it, but you may have a parent or somebody in your past or a family, who doesn't quite get behind it or may actually be actively disapproving. And then we go out there and say, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Right. But a survival strategy for a child is to agree with the parent in order to survive. Right. Not to be in opposition when you're little. You learn that we have to agree to survive. And oftentimes we have to be agreeable and agree with the most abusive and dominant parent, because that's where the danger lies. So
Dana, again, Jordan Peterson, same things. Sorry. That's all I wanted to say. You're just in the right range. Okay.
So what will happen is you will go forth and choose this path that, say, your father or mother just doesn't agree with, doesn't approve of, and you think you're I'm going to do it anyway. But there's this kind of gremlin going on that is still agreeing with that parent, because that's what we do. So you either have mixed energy or energy that's going, no, I don't approve of this. And so we'll literally sabotage it. Yeah. Because if you don't approve of it, you can't. I always say whatever we approve of flows and grows. If you don't approve of something, it just is dead in its tracks.
Oh,
so
boy.
This idea of really completely through and through, energetically, everything is to approve of this life choice is essential, because if not, you're not going to really let yourself have that flow.
I just literally what you're talking about. I got to go back to the comments for a second. I'm going to point this out to Diana. She talked about it earlier in the thing. What happens if you don't have anyone who allows you to be creative or supports you in that field? And later in this thing, she says, Diana, wow, you understand so well, right? What you were talking about, how the heck, if you've got those two things that are conflicted, because if it's happening on a subconscious level, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You're literally trying to and believe me, it's stuff I've worked through in therapy, recovery programs, all this other stuff, right? You're literally it's a schism. It's two different parts of yourself, and it can be uncomfortable. Believe me, that part of it of saying, this is what I'm going to do, and then truly believing, it takes a practice of surrounding yourself with those right type of people and speaking that, but what you focus on grows. And if I had a coach of mine that talked about, if you're bringing something into the light, if you're bringing a plant into the light, it's going to grow. And if you're not taking it towards that light or whatever that direction is, it's going to die. And could you imagine if you're trying to split a plant into two ways and say, well, I want it to go this way, but then I'm going to make sure I'm going to go, well, it's going to kill the plant, right? It's going to go two separate ways. And believe me, I get it. For that listener that's hearing, and this is speaking to you specifically, I understand it can be a scary thing, because in some cases it may be not only a parent, it may be a spouse. It may be somebody that's really dear and close to you. In any means, am I saying divorce that person? Heck no. I absolutely respect and care for marriage or whatever, but it definitely means having the uncomfortable, difficult conversations, the things that you're scared about having those conversations, because if you don't do that and go through the uncomfortable stuff, you'll never get fully into the light and in the right direction of what you're supposed to be doing. And sometimes I think that I think sometimes, I'm sorry I'm going off on this track, but I think that sometimes we want to embrace that non-conflict or that non-uncomfortable thing because we think it's the easier path. And instead, if we choose it, it's going to ultimately kill us. It's ultimately going to kill us, you know?
Yeah. But I also think it's not so much that conversation with the other person. I think it's a conversation with yourself. Because you can have those conversations with the other person, but it's really about taking ownership of your own life. It's never really about convincing your father or your mother that this is the right step. It's about convincing you that it's truly the right step for you. And sometimes that becomes really uncomfortable because you go down this road and you have to separate from that person in a different way. It doesn't mean you have to say, get out of my life, I hate you, but it means I have to adult. I have to separate in a way that where I am the one who is determining my life. And I think that is something that most of us aren't willing to do. And it's so much easier if you just do, like if your parents are, nurses or doctors or teachers or whatever, if you go on that path, that's so much easier, right? That's going to work out. If I had been a lawyer, it would have been much easier because that was like, sanctioned. Like, yes, that's a good thing to do. You should do that. Being a writer or being an art, was not. So that's a bigger hill to climb and an obstacle to overcome.
And again, you end up dealing with it. You end up betraying. And I get it. It's a fine line here, people. I don't want to paint this as puppies and unicorns and like, yes, everybody, let's go do it. Right. I mean, it's, when you have this calling and this drive and this need to do it, because as much as you try to get away from it, it keeps calling you back. Right. As much as you try to go in the opposite direction. Okay. Dad wants me to be a dentist and that's it. I got to give up all that stuff. And then I look at my notebooks and all I see is me doodling and drawing pictures and doing intricate stuff and all this stuff all the time. Right. It's going to keep calling me back. And the fact is that you cannot, sorry to get passionate about this, but it's like, if you were to follow a path like that and it is not truly your calling, and I get it, right? It's not, I don't want to tell everybody just like, well, follow your bliss, whatever that is, right? Because sometimes people say, well, what's your bliss? It's lying on a beach drinking margaritas. And it's like, that's not a dream. That's a tourist poster, right? That's not going to last after a week, right? So
it might last for a couple of weeks.
It might, but then it's going to be a disaster afterwards, right? But it is that feeling, that call, that talent, the thing that you're constantly doing. And if you're in your case that you talked about of like, well, if I'm a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, you're ultimately going to be living somebody else's life. And again, we're back to this schism thing that happens, But
I really feel like if you can't really get behind it, it's going to be hard. And once you do, it gets easier, going back to Liz Gilbert, and many people, most writers don't make their living exclusively as a writer. So you may have, a side hustle. You may have another career. You may have, and I think a lot of us measure our success based on, is my art paying all the bills? Is my art getting me a house? Is my art? That's a lot of pressure to put on your art. And I think that's something you have to look out for too. That's great if it happens. Yeah. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that you aren't successful.
Yes.
That makes sense. Paul's going like that. Was that me?
No. Yeah, no, totally. And that's what I know you said you're a fan of the show. You probably heard the one about my wife who grew up on Broadway. She was working at Disney as an entertainer. And then she just said, I need a job that I know I can feel secure in. And she found one in which she could do both. She could have the creative side and that security that she wants. And she's never been happier. So, I mean, I think that's part of it.
Healthcare.
Yeah, that. And just to what your point is, and it's just I'm just beating the horse even deader now. Just like if that's in your heart and if that's what you want to do, like you have to on some level.
Yeah.
Just to be happy in your heart and to feel at the end of everything like you've done what you're here to do.
I want to speak to something that I just saw in the comments because I think I think that we can help a little bit. But I see Dari saying something here, which is, I keep waiting for theaters and stuff to open, but keep thinking I need to find a real job, but my heart is with the theater. I'm going to speak to this just briefly for a second, Dari, because I think that this can help. And maybe you guys can jump in on this too. I think that sometimes, and again, I'm just going to speak from my own experience. Paul, Dana, if you have other thoughts on this, please jump in, or anybody else in the comments, you're more than welcome to. I think that sometimes we get certain things that are fixated. I shouldn't say fixated, but we get an idea of what it's supposed to be, the ideal of what it's supposed to be. And that's okay. That's good to have that vision and that dream and that ideal of what it is. I'm also a huge fan on working with what you have in the moment. Okay. I see this happen sometimes over the years with filmmakers, like filmmakers that stall out because they don't have the perfect equipment or editing equipment or all this, and waiting until something else comes. And I've said this consistently on the show here. Find the way for you to practice and start doing your art on some level. Now, when I go back to Dari's question about theater and all this stuff, I'll admit this, and I've worked on this with a coach before too, which is like, listen, at some point you have to figure out a way that you're also going to pay the bills while you're doing stuff. Okay. You got to do it. I've done it before in my life. I'm in a version of that right now too, but it doesn't mean that I abandon the art and I figure out ways to express myself. This podcast is one of those ways. Some projects I'm working on are they're not necessarily giving me they're not giving me money. They're not giving me major money, but it's a thing that I want to do and continue to show up on, with the hope that down the line, this can grow and do that stuff. Dari, when you're talking about theater, something that immediately just popped in my mind was, I'm seeing people now that are doing like play readings or stuff online, like just getting together with people and acting and performing. You see it on Paul's weekly variety show, where people are just getting in front of these cameras, and we're not in a theater, but we're making the best with what we can. And I will tell you, I think it's a beautiful time for performers and actors to flex that muscle right now, and who knows what's going to come. But at the very least, trying to find that tribe of other people that are at least practicing it. It's how Dana and Kate and Pete and all of us met. We were doing theater that we weren't getting paid for. We were doing it for the love of it, right? And boy, I was super grateful for that. Any thoughts from either of you guys on that? Okay, well, that's it. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
I was going to let our guests go first.
Oh, no. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just think we often take score too early. We often get, when I first started out, it was so much about the outcome. The bar was about the outcome. And I have to say, God, my father would hate to hear this. It is so much more about the experience and the journey and the process. Even though, listen, I'm ambitious. I'm an ambitious woman. I want big things. I still do. I want big
things. Rightfully you should. Rightfully you should.
Absolutely. I have no problem saying that. I want, I'm open for all the good stuff. But I know, and I know this from the example of my husband, I have to give him so much credit here, and is that the gold is in that moment. That gold is in creating something that didn't live before. And that is it. And that is the reason to do it. And if the other stuff happens, and again, I'm open for that. I would love for a movie to be made from one of my books, for instance. I put that out there, and I'm putting, that would be fantastic. Will it happen? I don't know. But it all comes back to the thing. Yeah. I mean, it really does, because that's the moment that, when you read something or write something, you go, oh, wow, that I just got that. I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's just, there's nothing like it.
Awesome. Paul, your thoughts on that?
Yes, Paul.
No, I mean, it's something we've talked about a lot, especially during the stay home order stuff. Is like, if your stage gets taken away, what do you do? What are you doing in the meantime? And Dari, like, is a huge example of that. She's like, she and her sister are like running the Instagrams for, and like learning new skills. And like we talked about it at the end of our last show on Saturday. Just like this time, it's an opportunity. It's a huge bummer of a year, but it's also an opportunity to grow in different ways and become a more well-rounded, stronger person on the other end of it. So, you know, it really depends on what you do with your time. And I think a lot of that, you know, is driven by whatever is in your heart to do. If your heart is telling you to create, to write, to whatever, like, now you have the time to do it. Like, and maybe the theaters aren't open and you can't apply for jobs there at this moment, but there are other ways to improve your skills.
I dig it. Dari, I'm so grateful for you for putting that stuff in the comments. I really appreciate it. You know, just one other thing I would tell you consistently, which is I'm probably preaching to the choir with this. Be reading plays and be saying plays and getting together with people and just doing these little Zoom things with each other and just like practicing it. Even if you're going to have to get, you know, I get it. You're going to have to get like a job that'll keep you going in the meantime. But if you're doing that practice now, when the opportunity comes, guess what will have happened? You'll be ready because you'll have been doing it and you'll have been getting better and better and better in your craft. So I just wanted to give that to you. Let me see some other things that are here from the comments. Oh, snap. Maddie's on the YouTube feed, everybody.
Wait, hold on a second. I was just going to say, too, someone who inspires me is Maddie Jack Paddywhack. Because that boy,
that's his nickname, everybody. Matty Jack, but his name is Matthew John Patrick Gregg. That's his full name.
Because you know, Matty is a damn. I said damn.
It's okay. I don't have to bleep it. At least
we just went to PG. He is a damn good artist, and he's so talented and persistent, and you know, he's hustling and doing all the things you got to do to make it happen. And I am just so impressed with your son.
Well, I
always have been impressed with your son.
I dig it.
I love him.
He's a good man. Here he is. He's saying, Dana, what I miss. He says this in the chats. Everybody, quit your jobs and intern full-time doing social media for my band, The Swells. That's what he does. Pays an exposure. He's literally asking people who wants to go out for drinks after this. Oh, boy.
Me.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Awesome. Oh, yeah. Maddie wants to know when he's getting a segment on this freaking show.
He needs one. You need to bring that. You know, that young man with the deep voice is pretty, he's got it going on.
I've been here's a reference point for the old schoolers on this. He's kind of like Chris Elliott's appearances on the David Letterman show, right? Like Chris Elliott would sort of show up and he had like a lot of like attitude and just like kind of salty, and you know, that's sort of what he'll be. Hey guys, what's going on?
We could get what are we doing next week? We could get Maddie, Danny Roquet, and Pete on the show and we'll just watch them go.
Well, that'll be it. That'll probably be about 24-hour podcast at least. So keep going. Dana, you're awesome, man. You're just so awesome. I'm so glad to have you here on the show talking about this. Can we say a couple of things, because we're going to get to giving away a couple of things that Dana gifted to our listeners here. So before we get into that, Dana, what are ways that people can find out about you, especially about the Aligned Artist?
Okay. There's so many ways. I feel like I'm everywhere. I am on I have an Aligned Artist Facebook group, and I have an Aligned Artist Instagram, which you can go there. I also have something called Tapping Boot Camp on Facebook. So those are all my tapping things. And I'm at Dana Middleton Books on Facebook and Instagram, and Dana K. Middleton on Twitter.
Fantastic. Congratulations on the book that's getting published in 2021, Truth or Consequences. And I'm really grateful that you and Kate are working on a series right now.
Kate and I are working again, and it's rocking. We're excited.
I love it, man. When you two guys are working together.
It's been great. It's been so great to work with Kate again. And we haven't for a long time. And we are, and she's so good. She's so talented. you know, she's just like pulls this stuff out of her, you know what, and it's just like amazing. So it really is great.
Hey, let's have some fun with our listeners right now. Sorry, for you people that are listening to the audio podcast, right now we're doing the live YouTube stream. And when we do the live YouTube stream, occasionally we have things that we're going to give out. Well, as fate would have it, Dana has gifted me with 2 books this evening. The first one is her debut book that got published, which is The Infinity Year of Avalon James. This is an outstanding book. So good. Pardon this, I just started crying. It was so good, man. It's an awesome book. We're going to be giving that out. And also, this is an awesome book, which you got to talk about the idea of how you came up with it. This is The Young American's Unofficial Guide to the Very British World of Harry Potter, Volume 1. This was sort of it was kind of a neat book because sometimes a lot of the British phrases that were in Harry Potter were a little bit confusing. Then you ended up writing this, correct?
Well, the quick story of that is I'm married to an Englishman. If you tuned in last week, you heard him. And when I was reading, I remember reading the second book thinking like, wow, there's so many just Britishisms that kids and people would not understand, because I then was kind of bilingual that way because I'd been married to him for probably 10 or whatever years it was, 15 years by then. Yeah. And thought, wouldn't it be great to explain this? And so over time, I ended up writing that. It was fun.
Wonderful stuff. Here's the deal. Thank you so much, Craig, for doing it. So even if you don't win the book tonight, Craig, who's on here helping us out, I like to refer to him as one of our producers. He's on here right now in the comments. He is giving links to your books. So if you don't win this tonight, please, I can't encourage you enough to purchase one of these. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to start out with The Infinity Year of Avalon James. And this is what we're going to do. All right, Dana. We're going to go with your question. We're talking about young adult authors. Okay. And Dana, would you like to start? We'll see if these people get this. Would you like to start with the question that you asked me? And then I don't know. We may have to figure this out.
It's easy. It's easy.
All right. Remember, so we're going to have to give them we'll have to give them a couple of seconds to answer because there's a little bit of a delay on this.
Okay. We're going to go old school. We're going to go back to Judy Blume. A lot of us read Judy Blume when we were younger. Okay. Right. So here's, I'm going to do, I have another. Okay. I got this sorted out now. All right. So this is the question. Okay. I'm going to make this good. I'm going to make this good. All right. Judy Blume is a writer, still a writer. I saw her recently in a conference. She's fantastic. Okay. And so inspiring. Anyway, her side gig right now is she runs a nonprofit bookstore.
Okay.
Where she lives in a very specific, particular place. Where does Judy Blume live and run her bookstore? Boom! That's it. Come on, people.
Okay, I've got people looking. You know what this is going to be? This is literally people like, uh-oh, here comes Maddie. He's already given answers. He says the Royal Tenenbaums. This is where you're just going to get like non sequitur answers. So the exact question, because people are now like scouring the internet, try and get this information. Where does Judy Blume live and operate her current? All right. Meryl said Key West, Florida. Is that correct?
Yep, that's it.
Very good.
Winner, chicken dinner.
I love it. Meryl, congratulations. You just won the Infinity Year of Avalon James. Hey, Meryl, do me a favor on Facebook or whatever. Just message me so that I can get your address to send this to you. I'm going to send this out on Thursday. Okay. So please give me a Facebook message so I can get your physical address so I can send this to you. Let me tell you some of the answers that we got. Maddie said Azkaban.
all the rest of them are Maddie, so you might as well.
Right, pretty much. Sorry, Charity, it wasn't Elizabeth, New Jersey. I like Maddie.
I think she might be from there.
So Key West, Florida. Very good. So Meryl, give me.
Now she's from New Jersey, I believe.
Oh, she is from Elizabeth, New Jersey, but now she's in Key West, Florida with things. So very good. Maddie said Middle Earth, California.
Middle Earth, babe. That's it.
Sounds like a place I want to live. Okay, here we go. Dari was saying that she's very interested about the Harry Potter book right now. Okay, Dana, do you have another question that maybe you could think of? Or Paul, do you have a simple question?
I could tell that Dana had formulated a pair of questions.
Uh-oh.
So I think
well, no, I hadn't. I thought of another one because I'm thinking of middle grade. Go ahead.
Well, that's okay. Well, why don't you do that? Because now what we get to do is we get to have it's sort of like an interactive show now. So now what's happening is now the people, as soon as you say it, they'll be scouring the internet and trying to come up with the answer as soon as they can.
This is going to be such an easy one, though.
Well, let's see. I mean, that's what it is. So
okay,
I say go for it. And then whoever answers this first, we're going to do it. And yes, Maddie, we'll get to your question in a second. Okay.
Okay. So, I have to be sure I'm getting this right. Hold on a second. I have to look myself.
And Maddie, I'm not going to answer that question.
I will.
Okay. In Roald Dahl. Okay, Roald Dahl. We're going to go with middle grade still.
Roald Dahl. So please give examples of some Roald Dahl books for a second.
We're talking about
The Giving Tree.
No.
We're talking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James the Giant Peach.
Yep.
The BFG, Matilda.
Yep.
All right. So what is Matilda's last name in the book?
Oh, what is Matilda's last name from Roald Dahl's book?
And don't Google it.
Well, you can ask them that, Dana, but we have no way of checking them, of cross-referencing them. Maddie says Tenenbaum. Then he says, how about Baggins? Well, now somebody underneath your moniker, I think gave okay. Is it, I'll tell you what, it's Wormwood. Correct. Melissa, congratulations.
Melissa. Well done.
Excellent. Melissa, you just got it. Congratulations. Dari, I'm sorry that you just missed that. That's 2 times that Dari just missed it. My gosh, look at all these people answering this.
I love where the sidewalk ends. Roald Dahl.
Oh boy. Oh, Paul. We're going to have to school you after this. Wonderful. Well, congratulations to our winners this evening. Melissa, Merrill, congratulations. I'll be sending those books out to you on Thursday. Dana, thank you for those gifts of that. And please follow the link that Craig put in the YouTube comments there if you want to purchase her books, because she's got that. She's got Infinity Year of Avalon, James, the Harry Potter book. She's also has Open If You Dare, which is a great book as well. So please, a lot of fun reading. Dana, any thoughts that you would like to leave our listeners with before we wrap it up for this evening?
Yes, be brave. If you want to do it, be brave. Yeah. Be brave. Like, believe yourself over other people. Be flexible. Don't be don't be, what's the word I want to say, Kevin? I can't say it. Be flexible, but also just like stand up for yourself. Believe in yourself. Yeah. If you're going to be an artist of any kind, you have to believe in yourself. And because a lot of times you won't. So you've got to, be your own best advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dana. Hey, quick question. Are your Dari wants to know this. Are your books available on audiobook yet?
Avalon is.
Okay, very good. So you can check that out. Awesome. Dana, thank you so much for being on the show. We absolutely appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Paul, speaking of appreciation, what's a way that people could appreciate us? That's the most self-centered, selfish thing that I could say.
Well, Kevin, let me ask you, how many people left us a review this last week?
Nobody left us a review.
Then don't worry about it.
Wait, you know what? That was all about Pete. That's only a reflection on my husband. No one left a review.
I don't think so.
He broke your show.
Zing.
Rate and review on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more people. Thank you so much. And if you write a review, I'll be so happy. I won't cry myself to sleep like I usually do on Tuesday nights.
We had a really good one last week, man.
Yeah,
my buddy that wrote that out, man, he did a fantastic job.
That's true.
Well, that's it. Hey, I want to let our listeners know right now, especially our YouTube audience that's on here. And Paul, it's a reminder for you. Guess what? Haven't been able to say this for a while, but it looks like it's happening.
Is it happening?
It is happening, brother.
Wow.
At this point, unless something else changes, we're going to be doing the live stream on Monday, October 5th. So we'll be doing it next week on Monday, October 5th, instead of Tuesday. Instead of on Tuesday. So we're going to be doing it Monday, October 5th, because we're having on the show James Arnold Taylor. James Arnold Taylor is a magnificent voiceover artist who's done a ton of voices. If you look him up online, jamesarnoldtaylor.com, I think it is, but he has done the voice of like Fred Flintstone and all this stuff. But most importantly, he's done the voice for Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Clone Wars CGI cartoons, which is amazing. This dude is fantastic. He's been doing, come on, it's a big thing for me. Okay.
No, I'm sure he's a big, I'm just laughing that is the one that is the, yeah. It always comes back to Star Wars.
I'm so excited to have Dana Middleton here. Okay.
Well, Dana just brings us down to earth, doesn't she?
No, it sounds wonderful. I can't wait. I will be listening and watching. I can't wait. It sounds great.
It's going to be a blast. It's actually a huge get for us, so we're super happy to have him on. So that'll be.
So is Dana Middleton.
Dana Middleton is the biggest get we've gotten so far. You got it?
Yeah.
There's Dana Middleton, then there's James Arnold Taylor, and then Pete
Where's
Atkins.
Pete?
I have told Pete, I said he needs to be like a switch hit host for us, right? If something happens with us, he needs to just come in and just take over the reins, man. He'll just let it go.
Yeah, but it'll be R-rated. It'll take it off the rails. It'll be terrifying.
He'll probably end up kicking up our ratings. So what are you gonna do?
Nobody reviews it anyway.
Ridiculous. Well, Dana, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate it. YouTube folks, stick around for a second. We'll say our goodbyes over there. We will see you guys next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Great to meet you, Dana. Play that funky music, Kevin.
Here it comes. That's it for our audio podcast of it. Thanks, everybody, for all of your comments tonight on YouTube. You guys are right. Look at that. Dari knows who it is. James Arnold Taylor. There you go. See? There's some people that dig it. Oh, gosh. Hey, for our YouTube people that are on here, if this is your first time visiting, everybody, Vaudacity Network, they've got a ton of different stuff that they do on here, everybody. They've got the Friday night improv shows. They've got what's coming up on Thursday. What the heck is the
Hunter's Love Cast?
Hunter's
Love
Love
just an
Cast.
Hour of acoustic guitar music with a sexy man from a cabin in Big Bear.
So check that out. We've got the YouTube improv players suggestion box on Friday nights, the huge variety show that Paul does on Saturday. There's so much to do. Anyway, if you like this video, it's a great thing because it helps us in the algorithms. And then also hit the subscribe button so that you get notifications for when anything pops up on the Vaudacity Network.
And another exciting thing that's happening on Thursday night, Quarantine with Friends is having their first Thursday night show at 7:30. Yes, 7:30 p.m. And I believe they've got a special surprise for the month of October.
Nice. So lots of good stuff. So there you have it. Thanks to all of our people that were visiting on here. Do I have any other comments on it? Thank you for all the work on this. Craig, Dory, Christine, who am I missing? There's a ton of people that
Dory, Christina, Heather, Anna, the whole street team, everybody who helps out. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And it was great to meet you, Dana.
Thank you for having me. So nice to meet you, Paul. And thanks, Kevin. It was a lot of fun.
It was wonderful meeting you again, Dana.
It was very nice to meet you.
Very good. All right, everybody. I think that's it for us. We're going to wrap up the YouTube live stream. Dana and Paul, hang on for a second. We'll say goodbye off Zoom. We will see you guys next Monday at 8:00 with James Arnold Taylor. So everybody have a great week, and we will see you soon.
I have to stick around. Am I in trouble?
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Hold on. Let me start the live cast. Bye, guys. We'll see you later. Bye-bye, gang.